Hey, it's Jim Dodson, the Florida Bike Guy. Welcome to our live stream. For those of you who might not know me, I'm a bike injury lawyer. My practice is located in Clearwater, but I represent cyclists throughout Florida. So, do you really have to slow down in your 70s and 80s, particularly in talking about riding our bicycles? I was drawn to this topic today, and I want to introduce you really to, I think, seven people who I think have kind of set an incredible example for us who want to remain active and want to not let the calendar dictate exactly what we should or should expect to do in terms of enjoying this wonderful sport of cycling. Um, I've come to believe, quite frankly, that our lives are what we expect them to be. And I meet people constantly who expect to be old, and they are. And I meet people constantly, particularly in the cycling world, who expect to be and act young, and they are. So the first person that I was sort of drawn to, there was an article about this has been circulating on Facebook, I think. This record-breaking grandma and great grandma, she's in her 80s and still competing. It's an interesting story. The lady's name is Patricia Baker. Patricia is competing, as I said, in her 80s in bike racing, really internationally, and has set all kinds of records for her age group. I think at the time this was written, I think she's 80 or 81. She comes at it from a history of having been involved in cycling and cycling racing going back to when she was in her 30s and 40s. Interestingly enough, she had an injury and she kind of was pushed off the bike because of back pain for over 20 years. Didn't get back on the bike until she was in her mid to late 60s. Just a little observation about that. This isn't a woman who was a high performing athlete, but she had back pain, which the doctors never could diagnose anything specific that was causing it from what we read in this article. And yet it was enough to keep her from riding her bicycle competitively for over 20 years. Later, she got a different bike at a different geometry and had some treatment which gave her some relief and really was able to resume her career. And the article talks about what a great run she's had and continues to have in terms of competing at a very high level and setting records. She has the record for her age for distance in a mile, which is about over 17 miles in an hour, distance in an hour. So she did over 17 miles in an hour. I think she broke her own record that she'd set previously. So this is an interesting person, but I think that another thing that I found kind of fascinating about her is the level of training that she does. She and her husband drive about 45 minutes, 3 days a week for her to be on a track under the supervision of a trainer, doing very specific bike-related activities, including weightlifting and training and riding 3 days a week. She's got a very specific regimen that most people who are in their 80s wouldn't consider to be something that they would think about doing. And I think it was just really inspiring to me. I also sort of looked online and I found an article called 10 Old People Who Will Inspire You to Never Stop Biking, written by Evan McKenzie for Carefree Living. And Evan did a nice job of introducing or featuring some wonderful people with a mixed variety of backgrounds who are really enjoying high level of activity into their hundreds. The first guy is a Robert Marchand, who is a French gentleman. At 103, he set his own distance record for distance traveled in an hour. He didn't start riding until he was 60, which is a pretty common theme. A lot of these people that Evan talks about in this article were not competitive. They had their life, they worked, they retired, and they started riding after they retired in their 60s. He also talks about a Benjamin Provizan, who is 80. What I really loved about the feature that he did on Benjamin, he rides because it brings him joy. It's like, isn't that fantastic? He loves it, and he just continues to ride. He started late in life. He still rides between 8 and 9 kilometers, 1,000 kilometers per year, although he's not competitive, but he's, like I say, 80 years old. He also featured Tony Stranips, a Canadian. Now, what I liked about Tony's story is that he lives in Vancouver. He's 90 years old. He has been riding for about 10 years. He still rides between 14 and 15,000 kilometers per year, which is pretty amazing. But he does it all in Stanley Park in Vancouver. He rides this park 6 to 7 times each day. And he does it because he just wants to keep busy. I think it's fantastic. The other thing about that is he's not on the road. I don't know Stanley Park. I've been to Vancouver, but I don't remember Stanley Park specifically. But it's one of those things that at his age, he's not exposed at least to traffic on the road, which is a great thing for him. There was a phenomenal, and each one of these articles, these people that are featured in this article, there's an accompanying video on many of them that shows the person doing some amazing things. And this one guy, they didn't have his name, but he's featured as the Art of Zen. He's a guy that allegedly is 76 years old. The video shows him sitting on his seat on the bike with his feet on the handlebars ahead of him and his arms raised up in the air. He's shirtless. The article describes him as being 76, but having the body of a 16-year-old. And it was really just describes this person who's riding with sheer joy to be on the bike, just like our friend Benjamin. And obviously he doesn't have, from the back, he doesn't have the body of a 76-year-old. He's pretty chiseled. There was also a George Christensen who is 70. George is a guy who has this encyclic knowledge of past Tour de France races and winners. But what he did, he is now 70. He tours the world. He has just taken it upon himself to ride his bike virtually everywhere in the world. They talk about him riding on what is considered one of the most dangerous roads in the world in Bolivia. He's done Cambodia, New Zealand, Australia, Chile, Colombia, all across the United States. And it's just so, again, just to me, perfectly inspiring about just deciding what you expect your life will be and making that happen. He talked about a Darby Roach who began touring the world when he was 62 years old. Darby is an author. He's writing blogs and writing books about his adventures on the road. So, I like this because in my non-cycling practice, I tend to run into people and people just in general around me at church and what have you. People get to a certain age, particularly when they get close to 60, they start complaining about this and that and feeling old. And I just feel sorry for people that have that mentality because if you expect to do something extraordinary, the odds are you will. And I think that we in the cycling world expect to do more than the average person expects to do with their life. In looking at this, these articles, they also talk about some of the benefits of cycling. And I know Dr. Merkin talks about this all the time in his e-zine, and he's an inspiring guy riding at 84, 85 years old at a very high level. We had Ruth Husky down in Sarasota, Manatee, who rode into her early 90s. But some of the benefits, like they cite that a person who rides a bike 4 miles a day has a 50% reduction in coronary artery disease. Cyclists in their 70s typically look much younger physically than anyone who is one of their contemporaries. And there was an interesting report I found, and I've seen this before by the BBC, that cyclists in their 80s have the immune system of someone in their 20s. Like, how important is that for enjoying a full and active life as the years click off? So I was inspired by this. I hope you find it inspiring. Life gives us an opportunity to do something special every day. And I hope that we all take advantage of that. You know, in our cycling practice, we represent cyclists across Florida who have been injured because of the negligence of a driver. My promise to cyclists is if you have an injury and you need me, we'll be there. It doesn't matter where you are. But I think a lot of people fail to remember that you probably have a more likely opportunity to be involved in a car accident, be injured than a bike crash, fortunately. And we represent cyclists and drivers in auto cases as well. So if you or a family member has been involved in an auto crash and need a lawyer, same rules apply. If you need me, we'll be there for you regardless of where you are in Florida. So I want to make an offer today. I think Katie's got it on the screen. 8 steps to take after a bike crash. It's got a bit.ly link there, 8 steps report. I hope you found our talk here a little inspiring, not to let the years drag you down, and let's keep at it and keep our expectation level exactly where you want it to be in your life. All right. I'm Jim Dodson, the Florida Bike Guy. Be safe out there. Take care. Bye.